Here's our next artwork for today. This is the Arch of Titus. Now let's look at the caption there. The patron, I said in parentheses, the person who paid for it, the patron, is Emperor Domitian. The title of the artwork is the Arch of Titus. It is located in the capital city of Rome. Now, I mention this because it is dedicated to the Emperor Titus, but it is paid for by his younger brother, Emperor Domitian. Notice how I've put in parentheses patron, because it's not like Emperor Domitian was out there carving up this structure. He paid for it. Also, notice my pronunciation. I say patron, not patron. This is not a fancy tequila. So who is Domitian? Who is Titus? What's going on here? Oh, let's get into some family drama. Family drama alert. Okay. So remember, we had Emperor Vespasian, right? Emperor Flavius Vespasian. He's the one who gave us the Colosseum. Oh, we loved him, right? Well, he died a year before the completion of the Colosseum. And when he died, his eldest son, Titus, became emperor. Now, Titus was already a celebrated general in the Roman army. He was popular with the people. He had several triumphs abroad. And when he became emperor, we all rejoiced. Yay, Titus, wonderful, wonderful. When Titus died without a rightful heir to the throne, the title of emperor went to his younger brother, Vespasian's younger son, Domitian. And Domitian, he did have some followers, but unlike his dad and his brother, he didn't have the celebrated war career, celebrated military career, I should say. So some people were not as into him as Vespasian and Titus. I'm telling you this because in an effort to ingratiate himself with his haters, Domitian paid for the Arch of Titus to be erected. You got that? So the Arch of Titus celebrates Titus, but it's paid for by his younger brother. What is this arch? It's your next vocabulary term. This we would call a triumphal arch. A triumphal arch is a freestanding arch honoring a specific emperor. So in this case, we have a triumphal arch that is celebrating the emperor, the former emperor Titus. These types of arches are found all over the empire and dedicated to all sorts of emperors and their victories. When I was younger, I used to think, well, maybe this served as some other thing, like maybe it's got like some kind of secret office in the top of it. No, it's a monument. It's not built as a building or an apartment complex. It is simply a structure, one unit, that is meant to be a monument to celebrate one specific emperor and their triumphs. A triumphal arch. And like I said, these are placed throughout the whole empire. We're just looking at this one, which is located in the capital city of Rome, and it was paid for by Titian's younger brother, the now Emperor Domitian. As I said, Domitian didn't have has much success in politics as Titus and Vespasian, and he uses this in an effort to unite or strengthen his support. The inscription on the top is written in shorthand Latin, and it reads, "The Senate and the people of Rome, to the divine Titus, son of the divine Vespasian Augustus." What we are learning about with reading that inscription is that Titus is now divine, and so is Vespasian. Did you hear what I said? I'm going to read it again. "The Senate and the people of Rome, to the divine Titus, son of the divine Vespasian Augustus." So what this is proclaiming is a unity of the governance, Senate, and the people, and a dedication to a god, Titus as a god, who was also the son of Vespasian, a god. See how it says Vespasius Augustus? So the divine one, the anointed one. Let's get this straight. As Romans, we understand if we don't like an emperor, we assassinate him, and then out comes a civil war, civil unrest, craziness, dust settles, and we move on. We know that we don't like emperors, we kill them. But you know what we do when we like our emperors and they die? We make them into gods. It is seen as good emperor is then elevated to the level of God. Good emperors are exalted and become part of the Roman pantheon of gods, which makes sense because they see this very clear connection between happy gods, happy people, and here a good emperor will become then a good god who will watch out and protect the empire. So when Vespasian died, he was then exalted to God. And when Titus died, he was also then proclaimed a god. So Domitian here is saying, I know you all, I haven't sold you all on me. I'm not as popular. But my brother was really good, and he's a god now. And my dad was really good, and he's a god now. So love me too, right? Well, what is being celebrated here? What's being celebrated here are not the triumphs of Domitian, but he's reminding you of the triumphs or the victories of Titus. Before Titus became emperor of Rome, he was a high-ranking general in the army. So before he was an emperor, he was a general. And as general, Titus was assigned to take back control over this portion of the empire which they had lost or had difficult in maintaining because of rebels. And they had centered around the city of Jerusalem. Now, this portion of the empire, while it doesn't provide a lot of natural resources, it was key in controlling the eastern borders with the Parthians to the east and maintaining a firm base of control around the entire Mediterranean Sea between the breadbasket of Egypt and the wealth and treasures and knowledge from the Anatolian Peninsula and Greece, and maintaining no enemy access to the Mediterranean Sea. So now you might ask, well, why was there civil unrest? Why was General Titus sent to Jerusalem to control the rebellious forces there? Great question. The city of Jerusalem, the people of Jerusalem, were revolting against the desecration of their sacred city. The majority of people living in Jerusalem and the surrounding area were Jewish, meaning that they worshipped a singular God, Jehovah. The understanding was that the emperor of Rome would not sully their sacred temple to their single God with Roman gods and goddesses. However, there had been a series of, what's the word I'm thinking of? There had been a series of national imperial demonstrations within the city of Jerusalem that many took to be a threat to the faith, and so they were rebelling against the larger empire. Titus was sent to destroy those rebel forces and to squash all resistance in the city of Jerusalem. This was then referred to, or is now referred to, as the Siege of Jerusalem. And the plunder and destruction of Jerusalem by Titus and the Roman legions was horrific. With it, they destroyed not only the city center, but more specifically the sacred temple on the Temple Mount. Now, we will be looking at Jewish art later on in the semester, and we'll come back to the Siege of Jerusalem. But just to give us an understanding of how catastrophic this is this was the sacred temple in the city for the entire Jewish faith. Titus comes in with his soldiers and levels the temple to Jehovah. And with that is an effort to destroy the people, right? You take away somebody's power by taking away their faith. So Titus goes in and takes the temple as a form of showing his power, his dominance, his gods and goddesses' power and dominance over the Jewish people, over the Jewish faith. This horrific event was celebrated throughout the rest of the Roman Empire because with it came an influx of money, an influx of controlled resources like slaves, yes, and loot, booty, treasures. As they plundered through the city, the soldiers then brought that wealth back out into the empire to be sold. So the Siege of Jerusalem is a tragedy and celebrated as a victory or a triumph for Titus. And that is what is being celebrated here in the Arch of Titus. So this is your next specific artwork. It's called the Spoils of Jerusalem, and that's our next video.